One, two, three, four. Oh, Canada, we stay at home for thee. Welcome to Stay at Home Cinema, everybody. My name is Cameron Bailey. I'm the artistic director and co-head at TIFF, which puts on the Toronto International Film Festival every year, among many, many other things that we do. What we're doing right now during COVID-19 is trying to bring people together through movies. Tonight, we're going to watch the Amma Asante film, Belle. And we are going to talk to Amma Asante before we start the movie. We're going to start the movie watching wherever we are in the world at 7 p.m. Eastern North American time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern North American time. In Canada, we watch on Crave, so please join us there. And I want to say Happy Easter to everyone who is celebrating, and a reminder, please, we're doing this because we need to stay at home, so stay at home as much as you can. Only essential trips if you have to go out, and if you have to go out, keep a safe distance, wash your hands all the time, and I find a little lotion helps after, because our hands can just crack up if we are washing them many, many, many times a day. Shout outs, first of all, to all Indigenous storytellers and their communities from coast to coast to coast across Canada, to all the organizations and the people who make everything we do at TIFF possible, our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa, and all the government support we get from the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario through the Ontario Arts Council and Ontario Creates, and also the City of Toronto. We have a lot of members and donors. We want to make sure to thank all of you as well. You might be watching right now. If you have supported TIFF now or in the past, thank you so much for that. You are helping to keep us going. Belle is a gorgeous period drama like you have never seen before. It's set at the same time as those Jane Austen movies that a lot of us love. I know I do. But this story opens a whole new perspective on those stories, because Jane Austen's world, and if you read the books you will know this, but Jane Austen's world is also the world of the transatlantic slave trade. They were happening at the same time. Belle is one of the first movies to bring those two worlds together, and that's done through a character named Belle, who is a young biracial woman who arrives at her family's beautiful estate in England, fresh from the Caribbean, and her very presence poses a problem. It stars Gugu Mbatha-Raw as Belle and Canada's own Sarah Gadon, and Sarah will be joining us as we watch the movie to live tweet, so thank you to Sarah for that. And right now we're going to try to get to Amma Asante. Just let me tell you a little bit about her first. She's a British filmmaker who's made 4 feature films, all 4 of them premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. Back in 2004, her premiere film, her debut film was A Way of Life. Then Belle in 2013. 2016 brought A United Kingdom with David Oyelowo and Rosamund Pike. And Where Hands Touch with Amanda Stenberg in 2018. She is one of only a handful of Black women in the world who've made 4 feature films. Think about that, in the world. For television, she's also directed episodes of The Handmaid's Tale and the brand new Mrs. America series. And in fact, she started out on TV, acting in a kids series called Grange Hill in the UK. If you are in Canada, that might be comparable to our own Degrassi show. A remarkable actor, writer, director, someone who's done really original work for years and years, and we were so thrilled to have Belle. I'm going to try to get her up now. Let me just go to the place I need to go to and find Amma Asante. Waiting to connect. And I have some questions from members of TIFF as well. So hey Amma, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Cameron, nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for doing this. It's much later where you are, so we really appreciate it.
Not at all, not at all. I'm just going to go ahead and turn you up a little bit. I'm sorry,
Sure.
I'm covering the screen for 1
Oh,
second.
and hang on. I've got to turn mine around. I don't even know how I did that, but there we go. Now we can see each other.
Yes,
You were
we
looking
can.
into the
I'm
corners
turning
of
you
my office
right up. Okay, great. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. All right, we have some questions for you before we start watching Belle.
Sure.
First of all, this is based, people might not know this is based on an amazing true story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you discovered the story of Belle and what drew you to it?
Yeah. So I was originally drawn to it by a postcard of a painting that exists today. The painting is still in existence today. It hangs at Scone Palace in Scotland, and it's the painting of Belle, who at the time was somebody I didn't know, a biracial woman dressed in silks, beautiful pearls, absolutely beautiful woman of color, standing next to her cousin in the film, played by the glorious Sarah Gadon, who is white, and they're about the same age. They kind of look pretty alike in the painting, and it's very clear from the painting that Belle is not a slave. And so this initially is what drew me to the painting. And to thoughts really also of who Dido could be, why she was standing next to this white woman in a period that we know, surrounded people of color outside of Africa and even inside of Africa when they were taken away with slavery. And why a painting would have been commissioned to be a testament today of her existence. I really wanted to understand what that was. And the other key thing is that because she's beside a white woman who in so many ways is so similar to her, and yet in so many ways we assume would have had a completely different existence to her, I was really, really compelled by how one could play with the comparisons within the context of a film while still leaving Belle front and center of the story and seeing the world through her eyes, really understanding what she had and what she didn't have based on her color, because Belle was privileged, and that was a key thing, was that she lived this existence that was complex. It was one of privilege and one of inequality at the same time.
Yeah, she was from a very well-off family, thanks to her father. But because she was a biracial Black woman, they didn't accept her. Many people didn't accept her. She couldn't move in society like her sister.
Exactly. There was still a lack of freedom, despite the fact that she was privileged, despite the fact that she was wealthier than many, if not most, white people of the time in the UK. There still wasn't a freedom. And the complexity also comes with the fact that she was loved. Her family loved her, and yet she still wasn't free, even within the context of her own home. And yet she still didn't live the life that many women of color might have lived, even if their white families had taken them in at that time. Quite often you might be well kept, if that makes sense, but you wouldn't really live with the family. You wouldn't really sleep in the same quality of quarters as the family. You might be protected but not embraced, if that makes sense.
It's a drama that's very much about the social mores and the politics of the time, but also there's so much love in the film as well, both within the family and romantic love too. And it's a really one of the pleasures of this kind of film. I want to ask you a little bit about those British period dramas that I think we've all seen and loved, based on the Jane Austen books and the Brontës and that kind of thing, with the costumes and the estates and the heartbreak and all those big emotions.
Right.
Until recently, we did actually only see those movies with white characters, although we know that Britain at the time didn't look like that. There were many people of color thanks to migration and, in fact, the slave trade as well. There were lots of people coming and going and living in the UK as well that were more diverse. What was it like to create that world that many people think they know from those previous movies, but to change it in how it looked?
I mean, the interesting thing was that when I made my first film, I had a wonderful world premiere, as you've mentioned, at Toronto. But it was a much smaller film than Belle. But my only experience of filmmaking and bringing films to audiences had been that particular film. So when I was making Belle, all the kicks were my own. All the kicks that I was getting out of it were those of somebody who was an audience member, a lover of those movies. And so every time I sort of turned an assumption on its head, I was getting a personal kick out of it, never really realizing that it was going to eventually, find its own feet and go out there and meet, huge audiences. I just didn't know that. and didn't expect that, if I'm really honest with you. We didn't know Fox Searchlight was going to buy the movie. We didn't know we would premiere at Toronto. We didn't know that it would find a place in the hearts of so many, both men and women. So it was just a real personal pleasure that I had, because I'm such a lover of costume dramas. I'm such a lover of that moment, you know, where boy meets girl and they seem to not like each other, but you kind of know that they're going to end up together. And I really wanted to, what I love about that world and any costume drama world really is, because we think we know it, I can use those assumptions as a sort of shorthand. It allows me to not have to spell everything out, because, you know, we assume and sometimes do know the world well enough that when I take you down a road and then suddenly spin it on its head, and I don't think it's a spoiler if I say to many people that, you know, in the movie, Belle is wealthier than her white counterpart, her white cousin. And you know, there was such a joy in moments at turning those kind of expectations, if you like, on their head, and allowing Dido to be on top at times in a way that we really haven't had an opportunity to see a Black woman of color, you know, woman of color in a costume drama like this before.
You cast Gugu Mbatha-Raw in the lead role. Tell me about working with her and what she brought to that character.
I mean, Gugu brought so much. She was an absolute dream. I mean, it's not a secret that we auditioned a lot of women of the who were appropriate for the movie. And I had met Dido. I had met Dido. You see, that's how good she is. Of course,
she became the character.
Exactly. I'd met Gugu some years before, because Gugu had actually auditioned for Where Hands Touch, which is a movie that became my fourth movie. So that was the first time that I met Gugu. And I remember being blown away by her then. Obviously, Where Hands Touch took such a long time to make that I made Belle and actually United Kingdom first. And so when Gugu came in for Belle, I already knew that she was an incredible actress. What I didn't quite know, and actually this goes for both her and Sarah Gadon, who played her cousin Bet, is the grasp that they both had for the material and the nuances, and the detail of what really mattered. And what really mattered to me really mattered to them. And that
is there such a thing, can I just ask, is there such a thing as a period actor? Sarah Gadon and Gugu both seem so at home in Belle, being able to master the language and the look and the carriage of themselves.
I think that there are definitely those who have a deft touch, should we put it that way, when it comes to period dramas. And it's true that you can get an absolutely fantastic actor, but you put kind of period language in their mouths and it doesn't quite sit quite as well as a different period might. And definitely this language in Gugu's mouth, this language in Sarah Gadon's mouth, in Penelope Wilton's mouth, you know, Miranda Richardson's mouth. I mean, it was literally the kind of kicks I got every day. Hearing this and seeing this work come to life was unbelievable. But I think the key was, you know, Gugu had a real tightrope to walk, I think, in that role. And I feel such pride that TIFF, together with Crave, are bringing this film to audiences at home now, when it's so important, as you say, for us to stay at home. And I was thinking about it, you know, even before this wonderful invite, I was thinking about how Belle is both an escape, but hopefully a film that gets you to think at the same time. Definitely. And that's really the tightrope that Gugu had to walk, was this tightrope of allowing us to kind of escape within the context of not just the love story with John Davinier, but also the love story, the paternal love story that she has with predominantly Tom Wilkinson, her uncle, but a little bit with her father at the beginning. I wanted this to be a film in which we, despite the fact that she was going to have a conflicted experience in the story, I wanted audiences to know from the beginning, wait, no, this is one Black woman on screen in a period piece who is loved. She is loved. She is valued, even by those who don't know how to properly love her in all of the ways that she needs to be loved. They do love her and they do value her. And so, you know, right from the very beginning, you know, her blood father says, know that you are loved just as I loved your mother. And it was important for me that the line is important for me because it's important that her mother is, even though she's absent, she's present right the way through the film, through Belle, and we talk about her often in the film.
Yeah, there is such family love in the film. In fact, it feels like this is, in a way, a perfect moment to watch it. Apart from the fact that the home, the estate that we see in this movie is, I think, far beyond what any of us are going to have sitting at home watching it. But the feeling of love in a family is very, very strong.
Yes.
We have some questions from our members and donors. I want to just pose a couple of them to you.
Sure.
You're an ambassador for one of our TIFF initiatives called Share Her Journey, which is an attempt to really open doors and provide more access to women filmmakers in the film industry. One of our Share Her Journey supporters is Millicent Diane, and she says, or maybe it's Dane, pardon me, she says, what was the experience like working on a period piece on location in those extraordinary English country houses? Did you feel like you were back in time seeing your cast in those places?
Yes, and there's always the moment when, especially when you've been in prep for a long time, when you've been in pre-prep trying to finance the movie, and then you've been in prep for a long time, when you see your cast step out of the car that brings them to set for the first time, and they are dressed as the character, you know, as their characters, and then they step into the environment that has been created. We had a wonderful production designer, Simon Bowles, who also designed a United Kingdom for me, and you suddenly see them in that environment. And the only word I can keep using, I feel really bad today because I'm not being very eloquent, but the kick you get is absolutely incredible. And so it was a really great experience. And I laughed when you first said it, when you first posed the question to me, because my husband reminded me about the evening that, now let me see, I think it was the first evening that I had to direct Miranda Richardson, Emily Watson and Penelope Wilton together, and we were doing a scene in a country garden, and it had been an absolutely perfect day, Cameron. It had been a beautiful, perfect day, and we got to the point where it was time to shoot the three of them, their scenes together. And for me, you know, as a still emerging filmmaker at the time, these were three queens, three goddesses that I was about to direct in a scene, and a wind, what felt like a tornado, like that I'd never seen before, just decided to descend upon us for the next, I think, about 5 or 6 hours. And they all had wigs on, and you know, they had these high bouffants and these beautiful, you know, Dido curls, as I call them, you know, at the side. And I thought, my goodness, they're in corsets, it's so cold, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be Vauxhall Gardens, you know, a kind of beautiful summer's night. And these actresses are not going to want to do this scene, you know, and yet we don't have another day in which we can film this scene. And needless to say, each one of them, and together, they were brilliant. And they acted like the wind wasn't there. And it's the first time I've actually told this story. I think, look out for it, guys. If you're watching it tonight, just look out. I mean, we did our very, very best to kind of hide the fact that it was one of the most windy days I'd ever experienced in my life. But I kind of thought, okay, now if this had been a kind of present day, kind of current day film, I wouldn't care about the wind. I wouldn't care about the weather, because you know, it's sort of irrelevant. But when you know you have to kind of create this idyllic period.
Yes, there's a kind of perfection that you're going for in the look in certain moments.
Absolutely, it was a tough one, but yeah,
we will look for that.
Yeah.
There's one other question from TIFF member and donor Laura Daynard, who asks, which brings you more joy and satisfaction, writing or directing? Because you do also write several of your screenplays.
Yeah, I do. You know, that would be like choosing between my twins.
Okay.
It's an impossible thing for me to do because one is absolutely a continuation of the other for me. You know, that said, directing Handmaid's Tale, for instance, you know, something that I never knew I would ever go on to direct and watch 2 series of without ever knowing I would ever have anything to do with it. And then suddenly finding myself, you know, directing what was a brilliant, 2 brilliant scripts. Again, I got such a joy out of that. And it's interesting because I try to direct scripts that I know I would never think of writing. So in knowing that there is a director in me that is separate from the writer, but there is also the writer director as well that's sort of combined. And so if I look at a script and I think, yeah, but I could have written that, or I would have written that, and I would have written it differently, then I tend to stay away. But if somehow, and I think, you know, when I direct somebody else's script, I direct as an outsider, and when I direct a script I've written, I direct as an insider. And I think there's no good or bad there. It's just a different way of approaching it, I think.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Sarah Gadon has kindly agreed to join our live tweet across Canada as we watch Belle. We're going to start in a few minutes. Tell us something about Sarah Gadon that we might not know.
Well, I mean, well, I guess I'm sure you all know that she has a wicked sense of humor.
Yes.
But apart from what a beautiful individual she is, both inside and out, which I know you all know as well, she has an enormous grasp of feminism, and had at a relatively young age, because, you know, when she worked with me on Belle, you know, compared to me, she was a very young woman, and I didn't know she was Canadian for some reason when
yeah, that happens a lot. We get that a lot.
She approached us and with her agent and had somehow gotten hold of a copy of the script of Belle, and was in London and had asked for a meeting, and I said, sure, I'd love to meet her. I had seen her work and had completely fallen in love with her work, but I also thought she was older than she was because she had such a command on screen. And then this young person walked into the room, and I started talking about the feminist aspects, or the gender aspects of Belle. And suddenly she just, you know, swooped in there. I think she was studying, at the time, she was studying gender equality and something else at university or college. And with that, her grasp of the script was so incredible that she literally blew me away. And I had said, I will not cast anybody who is not British in this movie. That was something I made to myself. And what you will not know about Sarah is that she made me break that promise to myself.
Okay, excellent. I didn't know that. She was the one exception.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's terrific. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about Belle. It's great to see you again. We're looking forward to whatever you do next. I know you have Mrs. America out now, so we're looking forward to seeing that too. We're going to watch Belle for everyone across Canada. We're watching on Crave. We started at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 on the West Coast. If you're elsewhere in the world, if you can find Belle on whatever service you can, please join us as we watch. We're going to have Sarah Gadon tweeting along with us using the TIFF at home hashtag. And I just want to say, Amma, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Take
All right, take care.
I'll see you on Twitter.
Yes, okay. Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.